Hey everyone, this is Sam with Paranormal Review, and this podcast is dealing with Ghost Hunters Season 1, Episode 2. Now, this is the new Ghost Hunters. This is the one with Grant by himself. When they are in the listings for this, A&E has termed this Season 1. So it showed August 28th of 2019, and it was titled Lady in the Window. It's dealing with Pillars Estate that is in Albion, New York, and dealing with Tony McMurtry. Now, I'm going to go ahead and tell you guys that, like the Ghost Adventures Halloween episode that I reviewed, I did some extra research. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about the episode, and then at the end, I'm going to talk about what has been found out since and what I found out that didn't show on the actual TV show. So one thing is if you haven't seen this one, you may want to look it up and watch it on ane.com and make sure that you see it before you hear it, because like I said, I have some updates that I want to share with you guys. I told you last episode that we dealt with the new Ghost Hunters, that I kind of like this team he was putting together. I like Grant Wilson. He seems like a genuine guy. I like how he starts this off and says that he does this now to make people who are terrified or feel like they're in a crisis situation to feel empowered. He's not out looking for, black shadows and demons and ghosts. He wants the show to portray real people and what they're going through and what the actual team finds. So we meet Tony, who, is Scottish and has a obvious accent. That he bought the house that we're dealing with here, the Pillar Estates, and he said that actually it probably should have just been demolished, but he decided to renovate it. And he said that he had some pictures taken of the house and that he sent them to his father. And he followed up with a phone call, and his dad's first question was, who is the lady in the window? And Tony said, I don't know what you're talking about. And he went back through the pictures, and there is a picture of a lady in the front window. And he said that he had had several housekeepers quit because of some bad feelings. Tony said that he wants to sell, but he feels like this house is holding him back, and it's holding buyers back, and he doesn't really know what to do. So, like I said, I'm going to deal with this whole particular thing that I've just talked about at the end of this podcast, because it colors how you see things. Because I almost wish I would have did this podcast and recorded it and then went back and added the section at the end, instead of going through research and looking some updates up and things like that, because it kind of colors what I'm going to say to you guys. And I don't want to do that. I enjoy this show. Like I said, I've only watched 2 episodes of it, but I feel like it's very entertaining. Do I learn anything? I don't know. I thought it was interesting, the first episode being about a high school. I learned about a different part of the country in that high school. I watched them debunk a lot. And then this one, with this being the Pillars Estate up in New York, I learned a lot of different history of, the Carr family. And so I still find this episode entertaining and everything, but I want you guys to know I took some notes on this, and some of my notes, looking back on them, I'm like, is this really true or not? Because the next thing that I wrote down was Mustafa seems like he does excellent research. That's one of the things I wrote down. He found out that there had been a book written on the estate by the owners that bought it in 1912. Their grandchildren actually wrote a book on the Pillars estate and the Carr family. And he talks about how he wants to go interview these grandchildren and kind of find out what they think of the house and what they seem to feel and everything. Tony says that he bought the house in 2006, and since this was filmed in 2019, he's owned it about 13 years. He says that he's come to find, after renovating it and making it look as nice as he has, and the film on it, on the episode, it looks beautiful. I would love to go visit there one day. The ballroom just looks gorgeous. But he found it to be too big for one person. Now, I wrote down hard to believe, because I really do find that hard to believe, because as they start this episode, they start showing pictures of this house. You can see from the road, from the driveway that they're driving down, this house is humongous. It's not called an estate for anything. So he had to have known when he bought this that it was a little big for one person. Now, I don't know, maybe his circumstances in his life changed. Maybe he was thinking that he was going to get married, or that he, was going to have kids or adopt kids or something like that. And then he needed a bigger house, and his life has now changed. I don't know, but that did strike me weird, as him saying that now the house is too big. He's found it to be too big for one person, because I was like, you can just tell that without even walking in. You can tell that when a home has a ballroom in it, it's probably a little too big for one person. They also ask him, has he seen any other things? And he talks about seeing a lady lying in bed at the top of the second floor in a long white nightgown, and he has heard the piano playing a high note kind of over and over. And Grant and Kristen want to know a little bit more about the house, and so they find out through Mustafa's research that William and Myrtie Carr owned it since 1912, and that she passed away in 1943. She was wrapping Christmas presents on the second landing and did not feel well, and went to her bedroom, which is also on the second floor, and had a heart attack, and she passed away. William got remarried to Patricia, and Patricia really didn't understand or know how to do upkeep on a house this size. She really didn't like it. She didn't particularly like anything, according to Myrtie's grandchildren. Patricia didn't like anything that was Myrtie's or that Myrtie used to enjoy. So she really let the house go. She kind of let it fall into shambles. And the grandchildren seem pretty excited that Tony has had it renovated and, is enjoying it. So, this leads me to write down a note, hey, do some research and find out if this house is sold. And I was like, oh, okay. So I want to make sure that I check up on that at the end. And one thing that I really enjoy about Ghost Hunters, the new Ghost Hunters and the old Ghost Hunters, is that they timestamp things. I have said in numerous occasions that I wish all TV shows, reality TV shows would do this. I want Big Brother to do this. I want, the Real Housewives. I want them to give me a date and a timestamp. I really like that Ghost Hunters does this because you can see how things move along when maybe there were dead periods and things like that. So we get to see that Lights Out is at 10:38, and you can also tell one thing that caught me about this particular scene when they were going through Lights Out was that there's a lot more production going in to the new Ghost Hunters than their original Ghost Hunters. When I started Paranormal Review podcast, I had not seen the original Ghost Hunters. I think I'd seen one episode of it. And I'm slowly making my way through some of the original. And you can tell the production value that is going into the new Ghost Hunters is way, way more. As far as the cameras they're using, the crew they're using, the different effects and equipment that they're using. So I like that immediately Grant wants Brian and Rochelle to head up to the attic where the lady in the picture photograph was taken. And they have a hard time finding it. And I think that was interesting to me. I find little things interesting or intriguing, and that they go up on the top floor, they look, they really can't find where they're looking for. They go into a different area, and they find a window, but it's facing the backyard. It's not one of the front windows. Brian says, hey, maybe we should go down a floor. And so they decide, hey, let's go down a floor. Let's see what's going on down there. And they eventually find in this kind of, as they're going down these steps, you notice there's like a cutout in the wall. And Brian says, well, what is this? And Rochelle turns the latch there almost, and it is like a crawl space. And what shocked me about this was, in order to film this, they had to show how hard it was to get over to where Brian sees there's a window. You see that this actually basically is a crawl space. Rochelle's not that big, but she's having to bend over. She also, it has joists, but it doesn't really have a floor, which means to me, Tony, I'm not real sure that he did a really good job of renovating. I think he needs Homes on Homes from HGTV to come in and help renovate this house, because obviously he either has never been in this part of the house or something is going on, because he needs to go in there and put a floor in there and figure out, what's going on. But Rochelle can't stand, and she has to walk on the joist to get over there. She finds that there is almost like a beam coming down, and that there are walls kind of jutting out, looks like about 6 inches from the windows. She doesn't take a camera over there. I know that she couldn't have she took a flashlight and Brian was filming her, but I wish that she would have taken a camera over there, because we could actually have saw what she saw. We could have actually seen, where the walls came out and how far they came out. But Rochelle says that she doesn't believe that she can maneuver her body, as small as she is, to even get the angle of the face that appeared in that picture, and that it just doesn't match up. And so she looks in the camera and she says, I believe no one living could be in that window. And I wrote that down because you know, that's a little weird statement to make that, you know, you're in the middle of this investigation. You don't really know what's going on. You don't really know what to expect. And she just kind of makes a statement like that. And they leave it in. That's, she may have thought that and said that, but that the production crew who put this episode together actually left that in there. I was like, I don't know about this. Just felt like there was something wonky going on there. So the next timestamp we see is 12:15. And like I said, this is the opening, the first time that we get to see this, beautiful ballroom that has the piano in it. I really enjoyed this section of the episode where Daryl and Grant are checking the piano. I like how that is their first thing. Had some other TV shows went in there, I think their first thing would have been, hey, let's sit down on the floor and let's wait a while and see if the piano plays. And Grant really doesn't do that. And that's, I guess one of the things that I enjoy about Ghost Hunters is he immediately wants to check the piano for rodents to see if, there were mice in there or rats in there that could have been causing the sound that Tony heard. That, is there any loose parts? Were there screws loose? Was something maybe vibrating or anything? Were strings broken that when they broke, they would have made the noise or anything like that? I liked how they actually showed us the piano and Grant, making sure that this is okay and plucking strings and everything. And then it shows at 12:50 that they hear some kind of voice. So that leads me to believe, for 35 minutes, they've been checking out this piano and kind of talking back and forth before, they hear anything. Now, me personally, I did not hear her voice. I did not really even hear a noise. I rewound the DVR a couple times and never really heard anything. But, they had a reaction where they heard something. Grant then starts talking up, about and to Murdy. And they start hearing some clicks and taps. Well, let's stop there and let's go on a rant. I do hate this about Ghost Hunters. I can't stand how they kind of make jumps. I almost wish that they would go in not thinking anything and kind of let the evidence lead them where it may. I think that's what a lot of police officers, what a lot of detectives do. Yes, they get the history and they go on those facts, but they kind of automatically jump to the conclusion that this has to be Murdy. Does that mean that no one else has died in this house? Does this mean that it's attached to this house? Why do they think that it's Murdy and not William? Why do they not think that it's Patricia trying to scare people away to leave this house alone? She doesn't want it occupied by someone that may like it as much as Murdy. Why do they not think that it's maybe Murdy and William's children that are the parents of the grandchildren that they interviewed, or that it's someone else? Someone had to have built the house for them, the Carrs to have bought it in 1912. Why do we automatically go to, oh, it's got to be Murdy. We've got to start talking to her. Is it because, so many people go out there and they automatically think that there has to be a death in the house, and if it was a tragic death, such as her wrapping presents, Christmas presents, and then having a heart attack later on in the night, that they think that that's some horrific death and that she wants to stick around? I mean, this is just the skeptic in me. I'm thinking, why do we automatically go down this route? So, to get back into the show, into this episode, we see Mustafa and Brandon on the second floor landing where she had been wrapping presents. And they have gotten some trigger objects. Mustafa goes into what is a trigger object, and they had gotten some trigger objects, a box of buttons, a teacup, some other things from the grandchildren of Murdy, and you can tell that because they got them from the grandchildren and they were Murdy's, they didn't get anyone else's trigger objects or anything that they owned or that they liked, that they were focusing on Murdy almost from the get-go. Like I said, I would have wished that Mustafa, when he was interviewing the grandchildren, would have gotten things from William, would have gotten things from maybe their parents, or found out other things. But they do have trigger objects there, and then they decide to use a 3-in-1 meter, which, they explain takes temperature, it is an EMF field detector, and then it's a vibrations meter. And Brandon and Mustafa start out in opposite bedrooms from that landing, and they start talking, and Mustafa talking about Murdy's grandchildren, and then Brandon thinks that he possibly might have heard a woman's voice. He's not 100% sure, and then the EMF starts spiking and letting off noise for their questions. And I don't know what I think about this. I wish they would have shown them doing an EMF sweep before. I'm assuming they did it. I'm assuming they just chose not to put it in the episode. You see Steve Gonzalez do this all the time in the original Ghost Hunters and in the new Ghost Nation. He tries to do a sweep of the area and say, hey, this is starting out at point 2, this is starting out at point 3, this is point 2, this is point 1. Oh, we've got a big spike over here in this wall. Wonder if there's electronics because it's 2.5. You see him doing things like this. We don't see Brandon and Mustafa actually sitting down and doing that. So we're left to kind of assume that they did it and that these spikes are just occurring to their questions, and they react that way. So given that, I have to I don't find anything wrong with it. Like I said, I just wish they would have shown that they did set a baseline and that these spikes are not naturally occurring in this particular area of the house. The next time stamp we see is 248, when Grant and Kristen decide, hey, let's bring Tony back as his own trigger object. And immediately, again, Grant starts talking to Murdy. And they're sitting down and kind of having a conversation about, things that Tony may want to know. They tell him to be natural, and Tony says that one thing that he wants to know is, why is Murdy just kind of lingering around? And Grant, being the great guy that he is and the sympathetic guy that he is, says, you may not get a statement answer from that. You may say something like that where you get some kind of response. Because I'm hoping that Tony has watched enough paranormal shows to know that, they're not going to give you a paragraph-long answer. They're going to be able to give you yes or no's or knocks or something like that, according to these paranormal shows. So Tony definitely is probably never going to get an answer to his question, why is Murdy, lingering on? then it's like Tony almost all of a sudden remembers, hey, the picture in this room fell down. And the look on his face, I watched it full through, and then I rewinded this segment because I wanted to really focus on Tony in this instant. Because I don't believe him. I got a weird feeling about it. I wrote it off to being kind of, I don't know, that he was from a different culture. Maybe he had different facials or different, it's hard being on TV. So maybe he's just nervous. Maybe he's scared or doesn't know what's going to happen. Fear of the unknown, whatever. And as I watched it back the second time, and he tells the story of the picture above the fireplace falling off, and that he had a coffee table there, but the pitcher basically jumped over the coffee table and landed more towards the door over beside the couch where Grant was sitting. I don't know. It was almost like a red flag went off, like, Tony, it's almost like you're making this up. And it was just really weird to me. For those of you who don't know or haven't listened to all the episodes, I used to be a Child Protective Service investigator. So I did forensic interviewing and got to watch people tell the truth, tell horrific stories, but also tell lies and make up different excuses and reasonings for things. And so something about this just kind of set off like a little alarm in my head. Tony then goes on, and Grant's saying none of this stuff fell off, and he says, oh, well, the candelabras weren't there. But my mom's picture was there. And as he says that, their tri-field meter goes off. And it only goes off one time. But it's enough to pique Grant's interest. And I like how Grant kind of handles this. As far as you can see it triggers him, he gets a thought, and he kind of then wants to explore that, and he asks Tony a little bit more about his mom. What was your mom's name? He says that it was Mary. It says that, she passed away. She likes gardens. But Tony then immediately, right after that, brings it right back to Murdy and says, Murdy liked gardens. My mom liked gardens like Murdy. And so it's almost like he is the one trying to steer them towards Murdy. Whereas Grant has this, I don't know, feeling because the tri-field meter went off, hey, maybe it's about Tony's mom. Maybe we have made a mistake. Maybe we need to back up. So we see them at 3:34 have a team meeting, and we're left to assume that they kicked Tony out. But he tells them about Tony's mom. He cautions them, hey, we're not switching this investigation over to Tony's mom. We're not going anywhere, because you can see Grant almost backtrack and think, we've been led down this path to believe this is Murdy. What if it's not? And I kind of feel for Grant, because you can see it when he's having that team meeting, that he really is cautioning them, hey, this could be about something else. I wanted to jump through my TV, kind of shake Grant and say, duh, it could be about a lot of different things. Let's quit assuming and going down these paths. let's quit assuming this is Murdy. Let's quit assuming this is Tony's mom. Let's open this up. Um, I did. I wanted to shake him. I wanted to get him to kind of wake up. But then, of course, they had the meeting at, like I said, 3:34, and then at 3:43, we see Brandon and Mustafa in the ballroom near the piano, and of course, they start talking about Tony and Mary, and they think, well, maybe we should talk a little bit about that. We hear their EMF spike, and they hear a sound at the top of the stairs. Now, the sound that was heard by Mustafa and Brandon, it seemed to be almost like a click noise that you heard when Daryl and Grant were in there. I kind of wonder, with it being a ballroom, there being that grand staircase and then that landing, I wonder if there is a clock in there. Because that's almost kind of what it sounded like, was like a click that an older clock would make when it's going to the next minute. Not the tick, 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 tick of every second, but one where its hand is going to just the next minute. Then we flash to 4:14 of Daryl and Kristen in the ladies' parlor. And they hear, the tri-field go off, and they hear noises in there. That's the only time that we really see anybody exploring the ladies' parlor and really kind of getting in there, and it wasn't that long. I wanted to know a little more about there. Since they didn't show it, I'm assuming that not much happened in there, but I kind of did want to see that. The next thing is they flash back to Mustafa and Brian, and they're back on Murdy. They've got Murdy's teacup sitting on the 3-in-1 meter, and they're asking different questions. And a couple of the questions involve Tony's mom. And so they're bringing Murdy and Tony's mom almost together, like they're intersecting. Because they ask, is this Murdy? And the 3-in-1 meter goes off. They ask, have you seen Tony's mom? Is Tony's mom here? And different things. And they're getting a question and answering session kind of going on that I found a little intriguing and everything. So, they do the reveal, and they're sitting there with Tony, who gets a little emotional. They tell him that, hey, we're empty-handed on the photo of the lady in the window. We don't know whether to call that paranormal or not. They show him where Mustafa and Brandon get a woman's voice. They do not tell Tony what it says, but Tony says he believes it says here. And then, you have Grant and Daryl and Kristen agreeing that they believe it also says here, and that they think it means that someone is saying, I am here. Tony, again, brings it back to Murdy. Then they give Tony a set of headphones and say, there's a woman's voice. What do you hear? And they play it, and they play it, and they play it, and they play it. And he says, I don't believe they are speaking with an American accent. And he says he thinks he hears the word mum or the word Mary. I never really heard Grant or Daryl or Kristen say what they thought it was. So we just kind of see them nodding their heads. I kind of wanted to know what they thought it was. And then Tony starts talking about how he's not freaked out anymore. And we see, hey, this is a beautiful episode. Tony got emotional. He doesn't understand why his mom may be here, but maybe she just wanted to see his place and be introduced to it. And he kind of leaves it up in the air. Hey, I don't know whether to sell it or not. Well, I wanted to know, hey, did Tony sell this place? Did he keep it? Was this a beautiful story? Has he had any more, incidents or anything like that? I also wanted to know a little bit of history of the Pillars estate. I wanted to know, because I thought Tony was giving me red flags. I basically wanted to know if he had turned this into a haunted place and was charging for it. I couldn't find where there had been any other TV shows there, so I'm wondering if this is going to be on a new list of the next season of whatever, on whatever paranormal show, if they're going to go back to this. I hope not. Because here's where I'm going to get real. And if you haven't seen this episode, you need to turn this podcast off. But if you have, then do some quick researching. What you'll find is, one, I found a YouTube video of Grant getting on there. It's about 4 minutes long, saying that he has an update in the Pillars Estate case, which is, it's about a week maybe after this particular episode aired. He is on YouTube explaining and thanking the fans for figuring out that there is no way that the photo of the lady in the window was paranormal, because so many fans had wrote in that they had seen a meme with that exact face in it, and he shows on the YouTube video where you take the meme and you plug it in and the faces match exactly. He also shows a segment where Daryl is out interviewing two friends of Tony's who stayed there over a holiday weekend, house setting basically, and they decided to go out and take pictures. And he said, he didn't notice it for a couple weeks, but then he noticed this mysterious thing. Well, supposedly Tony didn't know about, the lady in the window until he sent the pictures to his dad. So does that mean that his friend that was house sitting for him, that gave him the pictures to send to his dad, didn't say, hey, Tony, look at this lady in the window I captured? Are you serious? That's a joke. So Grant, on that YouTube video, Grant, if you're listening, I wish you would have just called out right on the YouTube video, Tony being a phony. Quick research also brings up, Tony has been trying to sell this house from late 2014 to 2015. He started out, the earliest I could find was in 2014, asking $1 million for this estate. Then he dropped his price in 2015 to $500,000, and then it looks like in around 2017 or so, he drops it to $450,000. So Tony's been trying to get rid of this place for about 5 years, maybe 6. Or longer, who knows? It's also listed, when you look at different real estate listings in 2014, 2015, it says owner thinks it's haunted. It's almost like Tony was trying to tell people it was haunted to get it sold. Again, when you look up, there are articles in newspapers where Tony has called into the newspaper and told them that he's having problems with this house, that it's haunted, and that he's trying to sell it. So again, in this episode, who's fooling who here? Is Ghost Hunters fooling us? Is this, really one of those, as Grant says at the beginning of the episode, one of these people that feel terrified and is in crisis at the moment? Well, no, it's not. Tony's not terrified. He is wanting to drum up business in order to sell his house and has been doing that since 2014. Grant says he wants to leave them empowered. Grant, did you leave him feeling empowered? I don't think so. I think Tony was already knowing what he was doing by trying to get a TV show here to the Pillars Estate. So did Ghost Hunters not do their research? Is Mustafa not the excellent researcher that I thought he was? Or is he, and they knew about this going in, they knew that they had been saying this place is haunted for 5 or 6 years, and they willingly went along with this? Is Tony trying to pull something over on the public? Is this place truly, if he's been haunted for 5 or 6 years, why is he still living there? Why is he telling a big story that this place is too big for him? There are so many red flags about this episode when you want to do a little bit of research. If you go to, the second and third pages of Google, you find like a menu where there maybe was a catering service. They were opening up a banquet hall. It seems like in the area that we see that is absolutely gorgeous and is, I don't know any other word to say other than it's just beautiful there in that ballroom. But they're trying to open up like a banquet hall. There's a listing there of where people can contact, and it doesn't say who, so I don't know that it's Tony. It could be someone else, but to do private tours of the house or do haunted tours of the house. I'm really wondering if Tony's wanting to still sell this. I couldn't find a 2020 listing of the Pillars Estate, so I don't know if he's still trying to sell it. Or like I said, is he trying to turn this into the next big haunted estate that everybody will choose to visit? I don't know. I'm going to kind of leave this up to you guys. I want to know what you guys think. You can write me at Paranormal Review Pod. That's singular, not plural. No S. Paranormal Review Pod at gmail.com. You can hit me up on Twitter under Paranormal Review. Kind of let me know what you're thinking about this, because I find this interesting. Is this Tony pulling the wool over Ghost Hunter's eyes, or is this Ghost Hunter's deciding on this actual location and not wanting to switch it after they do the research and they find out all this? Did they maybe shoot a lot more footage and it wasn't added into the episode, which made the episode lean one way when it was more of a balanced type investigation? I'm interested in that. If they shot more footage and it was more of a balanced investigation and they found out some other things, but this is how the production team or A&E or whoever kind of wanted this episode to go and wanted us to go down this path, then hey, whatever, that's fine. Like I said, I still find Ghost Hunters extremely, engaging and entertaining. But I am a little disappointed in this episode. Actually, I'm a little bit more than a little disappointed. I am disappointed in this episode. Now, I'm gonna, give episode 3 of another try. We're going to be doing that one coming up soon. But I think I'm gonna take a break on Ghost Hunters right now, and we're gonna go to another show, and then we'll come back to Ghost Hunters. But is this how Ghost Hunters is going to operate? Is this how the new Ghost Hunters is going to operate? Like I said, contact me and let me know what your feelings are and what you think about it. And I look forward to hearing from all of you and talking to you guys soon. This is Sam signing off.